Thank you. My apologies in advance, just in case I get into a coughing fit in the middle of this presentation. That's because I'm still recovering from sick bay. So when Richard, Rebecca, and I were meeting last week, I started talking to them about, guys, why do you keep on inviting me to this HR gathering? You know very well I'm no longer in HR, so what is it that you'd like me to talk about? And so Richard said, well, up to you, which is the most difficult answer, right? Sometimes I like it when people answer me with very prescriptive answers. So what I thought I'd talk about is my transition. Okay, from an HR functional leader to becoming the CEO of the pioneer and the largest managed or hosted services company in the Philippines. Last April 6 was the time I celebrated my 3rd year as CEO of Microsourcing and Beepo. When I look back at all those 3 years, what was the most frequently asked question? Guess. How did you become CEO? Or permutations of that question. It's as if people, even HR, or probably most specifically HR practitioners, were in disbelief that one of our own actually was able to break the so-called glass ceiling. And so I look back at my experience, and during the first year of my stint as CEO, whenever I got asked that question, I answered, you know what, I really do not know why there are no more CEOs. Because the job of a CHRO, or head of HR, is infinitely more difficult than the job of the CEO. But now, 3 years into the role, I have my version 2.0 answer to that question. My job as a CEO is not as difficult as my HR job because I had an HR job. And in the course of my preparation for this particular session, I came across a study which was made by Korn Ferry. Who amongst you here are familiar with Korn Ferry? Just about one of the most respected, if not the most respected and largest talent acquisition and talent consulting firm in the world, in partnership with Dave Ulrich, or Ulrich. Now, to those of you, if you're asking yourself, who the hell is Dave Ulrich, then I don't know what to do with you. Maybe you're in the wrong session. Maybe you should not be in this room, okay? But let's do a little bit of a recap, shall we? Because he was my God. I kid you not. I went into HR at the time when all the discussions in the People Management Association of the Philippines was all about how do HR practitioners get a seat at the table, right? And it was then that book, HR Champions of Dave Ulrich, got published, right? What are the 4 roles of HR? Do you remember? Admin expert. Now, if you only think it's admin expert, again, maybe you should be in another session. The second one is employee champion. The third one, according to Dave Ulrich, that's why this book became really, really seminal, was change agent. You make change happen. You're not the Girl Friday cleaner. Okay? But last but not the least, you're a strategic partner to the business. 4 roles of HR. So they combined their resources and came up with a study. What was the study about? They asked the question, can CROs or CHROs be effective CEOs? So what they've done, first and foremost, was they took a look at the salaries of all the top C-level executives. What are the typical C-level executives? Of course, you have CEO, you have CIO, CFO, CMO, CHRO, etc. They took the best of them. They took the 10th decile, which means these are the best of the best, right? And then got the annual average. Guess what they found? Who's the highest paid amongst the C-levels? CEO, syempre. Okay. The next one, what? COO. Because these roles actually often overlap with each other. What's the third one? How lowly must you think of yourselves and your profession? It's HR. Chief HR officers amongst the top companies and amongst the top C-level executives globally are the 3rd highest paid C-level executive. Why is that? According to them, it is because great HR people, CROs, are hard to find. That's why they're paid very, very highly. And they did another thing. Because Korn Ferry, with this history, was able already to craft their own proprietary assessment tool. Proprietary to Korn Ferry, developed over years of practice. What they've done together was they elucidated all the 14 leadership competencies that they use in assessing C-level executive searches that they've done over 10 to 15 years. And they mapped it out, grouped it into 3 broad categories. What are the 3 categories? Leadership style. How do these C-level executives behave in public? And how do they relate to others in public? And how do they want the public to perceive them? So that's under the bucket, leadership style. The next bucket is thinking style. How do they process information? How do they act and behave outside of the public light? And then the third one, emotional competencies. How do these C-level executives deal with stress, with ambiguity, with risk-taking? Okay? So take a look at the results. Where you see light blue is CRO, CHRO. Where you see red is CEO. Interesting, right? What can you see from there? The obvious conclusion is that amongst all of these leadership traits that thousands of companies that Korn Ferry have worked with, including Fortune 500, that traits of CEO and CHRO are the most closely linked. In most of these leadership competencies, they are almost always overlapping. But why is it then that there's not more CHROs around, right? They also took a look at the job descriptions. What are the critical deliverables, the critical activities of a CHRO, and what are the critical deliverables of the CEOs, and matched it head to head. What happened? Again, almost cut and paste. Almost. So why do we not have more of them? So one of the things that they found out through this study is that there's one critical element that's usually lacking amongst HR practitioners or CHROs, and that's business acumen, understanding the business. In the book that was penned by Dave Ulrich around 15 years ago, he talked about HR champions being inside, outside looking professionals. That in order to be a great HR champion, you need to understand your business, you need to understand your organization and be able to project that into the world. Now, in this particular study, what he's showing is that in order for that HR champion to become a CEO, that HR champion needs to be an outsider looking in. Okay? Meaning, as a CHRO, do you understand first and foremost how your organization makes money? What are the trends happening outside of your organization that's impacting your clients and your business? What are the different business environments, social, geopolitical, ecological, that are happening all over the world that might impact your organization, if not now, but in the future? One of the things that was used to describe me in one of my past jobs as a CHRO by my nemesis, who was from operations, the COO at that time, was that, "Hay nako, yan si Haidee, yan ang HR na accountant mag-isip." He meant that to be pejorative. It's a good thing I did not take it as an insult. As a matter of fact, I took it as a compliment, and that worked very well for me. Remember that great HR is not about making HR better. It's all about making business better. Now, the second one that they've seen was that HR, by the way, please do not distress. One of the, who amongst you here, do not raise your hand because I don't want to put you in spotlight. Who amongst you here are career HR practitioners? What do I mean when I say career HR practitioners? From graduation to college, all the way to retirement, HR, purebred, purist. One of their findings is that for purebred HR practitioners or CHRO, there is no path to becoming CEO. They said there's just no way. You can be in line for succession as CEO if you have not experienced working in other sides of the business, particularly those sides of the business that have P&L responsibility. Okay? That's why in my past jobs, whenever I'm done reporting, I still stayed in the room and made what that my favorite COO was saying before, yan si Haidee, bida-bida. Okay? Bida-bida. Meaning pakialamera. I did not care whether it's not my department. I'm gonna weigh in on it because whatever it is that you're discussing there, most likely will have people impact and head of HR, it will impact my department. That's why, even if you may not want to invite me to the table, I will invite myself to the table. Okay? So how do you then get that competence? If your organization does not have a clear developmental program for you, get a mentor. Participate actively in in boardroom discussions. Take special projects that are interfunctional and multifunctional. All of these are within your reach. One of the things, hopefully, that you noticed in the result of that study was that the competence, the trait where HR and CEO had the most gap was what? Confidence. It's not that HR lacks talent or lacks skills. The question is, are you confident about showcasing and unleashing those talents? Don't fret if your answer is no, because your hesitance to be bida-bida is shared by other HR leaders around the world. So what then do you do? Okay? Do not be afraid to showcase your talents. Do not be afraid to take part in business-related conversations. And then the third one, a word that I so love. The first time I read the book, I couldn't put it down. Anti-fragility. Okay? It now comes in so many formats, right? Or so many other words like grit. It's said that for HR to be great, you need to be grit. You need to have grit, rather. Okay? This is closely related, according to that study, to lifelong learning and failing forward. One of the things that they found out was that one of the great obstacles to the ascension of CHROs to CEO level is that we do not take risks. We are afraid of failing. And so what they're proposing is that we need to teach ourselves as HR practitioners to be comfortable, not necessarily with failing, but be comfortable with failing forward. Okay, fail, but make sure you learn from it. Fail, but make sure that you become better as a result of it. Okay? So, I ask the question to you all. Who amongst you in the room is going to be the next CEO. I challenge you. Why can it not be you? Yes, Hazel? Thank you very much.